So there was a vacancy for the what? For the vice president.
To succeed Murumbi, they needed another weak person. And the weaknesses they were looking for is weaknesses of character and weaknesses of community of origin.
And then who is in a position to take over the job? Moi.
And Moi qualified in both.
Ni wajibu wetu kama yuko shida kwa shule fulani, tufanye harambee. These things could be facilitated if roads, rails exist.
Mzee, nitawaambia sasa hivi. Asante sana mzee. Na vivyo hivyo Mungu asifiwe.
This moment marked a decisive turning point in Moi's climb, placing him directly beside President Jomo Kenyatta.
I sat down there.
And subtly branding him as a future contender for the highest office in the land.
The third qualification that Moi had, which Murumbi didn't have, is the strong British and later on American support. The Americans supported Moi when they realized that Kenyatta meant no harm. Kenyatta is an old man who needed his whiskey and ribs of a goat. He confirmed that family when he allowed, Operation Thunderbolt to be coordinated from Nairobi. You remember Operation Thunderbolt? Entebbe raided by the Israelis with the knowledge of Kenyatta. They gave them safe landing here. That's when the Americans said, this is our boy.
See, the British put him in the Legico. And in the Legico, he was busy saying good things about them. And he was among the first to jump from KANU into KADU, which was a settler thing. He never left that attachment. It was never. And as I just pointed out, you have the new Kenyatta government. He's trying very hard to be seen to be friendly to the West.
Yeah.
Not just to be seen, they actually were friendly to the West for different reasons. Okay? Now, part of that friendship is to have people who are friends of the British.
As vice president, Moi emerges at a point where Kikuyu sub-nationalism, I call it sub because I have the nation in mind, sub-nationalism was at its highest around the presidency. There were members of Kenyatta administration who were very much aware that Kenyatta's life was actually not going to be there forever. Every day that came, they began to realize that Mzee was becoming weak. And they thought, we have now learned that the presidency is actually the pathway to all you need to be rich, to be stable, and to be secure, both as a community and as individuals. We can't let this go. So there started a struggle within the inner circle of Kenyatta's followers, supporters, elite group. And that is the struggle that did not make Moi life easy and also enabled him to survive. His life was not very easy, but enabled him to survive.
What do we see then? In 2 years, what did we see? There was a serious change of the Constitution in 1968. When they introduced detention without trial, You have to be a member of a party to be elected anything. You cannot be an independent candidate. KPU was there. It was there. But KANU had the majority, so they ran through things. KPU will be banned a year later for different reasons. Yeah. But the passage of the amendments, draconian ones, were in 1968. And to make matters worse, they appeared to be aimed at Tom Mboya.
The brilliant and charismatic minister whose shadow loomed over Kenyatta's government. Mboya, it was feared, could claim power should the presidency suddenly fall vacant.
Remember Mboya's clause? If there is a succession,
any member of the cabinet.
Yeah, they can do it. They changed that. And they said, should there be a vacancy, the sitting vice president will be acting president for 3 months. So that Mboya thing, out.
And that laid the ground and the foundation that Moi will step and emerge, at first very weak, and then much more stronger.
A shrewd recalibration of the political chessboard that introduced the controversial 90 days rule.
Somebody should take care of the government while they are figuring out what to do. And it should be clear, the line of succession, not to second guess here and there. So that's why I say you have an election in 3 months so that those who want a job can campaign at the time, but not when you are mourning.
Yet, even with the law reshaped, Moi's path to power was anything but smooth.
Yeah, there are people who thought they could replace him, or do what was done to Tom Mboya and Odinga. So Odinga was sidelined. Mboya helped to sideline Odinga with that constitutional thing and then some other things. The Turn Court Amendment, Mboya's work. And then in 68, because it appeared as if Kenyatta may be a goner, supposedly had a heart attack or something. So that's why there was a frenzy to get things quickly. Kenyatta refused to die at the time, but the amendments were put in place. So what remained were now the future.
KANU imekwisha shinda kabisa na kuonyesha ulimwengu mzima kwamba KANU ndiyo inatawala nchi hii ya Kenya, hana ingine.
You worked for 2 presidents, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta.
Yes.
And Daniel Arap Moi.
Yes.
But for the longest period you worked for Daniel Arap Moi.
Yes. 24 years, 4 months, 8 days.
When did you first meet this Kenya's second president?
In 1977.
Mm-hmm.
When I was posted from Kakamega, where I was working in the Provincial Information Office, to State House to be Jomo Kenyatta's press officer. Somehow, Moi noticed that I was a good writer and I was doing a good job for Kenyatta.
Oh, KANU yajenga nchi.
Mimi niko na uwezo, na mimi kama najua rafiki yangu mimi niko na uwezo. Ndio, mimi niko na uwezo, na mimi nitatumia uwezo wangu kwa njia nzuri. Kama nakupatia kutupa mawe pale njiani, njia nzuri. Tutafute chakula ya wananchi.
KANU yajenga nchi. KANU
Tutafute dawa nzuri ya kuwapa watu wetu kama hospitali hii ambao wanataka kuiharibu. Tutafute dawa nzuri ya kuwatibu.
Njiru, who would later become Moi's close aide, recalls their first encounters with striking clarity.
At that time, some forces within the government establishment, mostly Kikuyus, people from the Gema community, felt that Moi should not ascend to the presidency when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta died.
The Kiambu Mafia.
The Kiambu Mafia. Well, not necessarily Kiambu Mafia, because some of them were not from Kiambu. Paul Ongei was not from Kiambu. Angaine was not from Kiambu. So this was a cabal of people would not like Moi. And Moi knew I was not a Kikuyu. So he called me. And it was 1977. So I went to see him. We discussed many issues of mutual interest. But then he told me that whenever Jomo Kenyatta travels to the Rift Valley for his working tour, I may not know. When you announce about his itinerary, just put down there that at the same time, the Vice President and Minister for Home Affairs, Daniel Arap Moi, has asked the people of Rift Valley to receive Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, give him a thunderous welcome as soon as he steps on the soil of the Rift Valley. That is at Mai Mahiu. Yeah, so we agreed, and of course I would brief him on the ongoing.
Moi fitted in very well.
Sasa hivi mzee, mzee, nitawaambia sasa hivi. Asante sana mzee. Na vivyo hivyo, Mungu asifiwe. Kabisa mzee.
His loyalty was to Kenyatta, if not somewhere else. And even if it was somewhere else, it was primarily to Kenyatta, because he was the government.
Vice President, please inform His Excellency the President that he has been nominated as the only candidate for the presidency.
Kabisa. Sasa hivi mzee.
When you started working closely with Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and Daniel Arap Moi,
Yes.
how was their relationship?
It was very, 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 very cordial. Even Jomo Kenyatta would help Moi with money for campaigns. Yes, although he was not giving more than 10,000 shillings. Yeah.
But those days,
It was a lot, but he should have given him more.
To step into Kenyatta's shoes, he endured humiliation and at times even physical intimidation at the hands of powerful rivals who hovered close to the president.
During that time, Moi would not go to the Rift Valley without the express permission from the provincial commissioner, Isaiah Mathenga then. And you are vice president. You are answerable to the provincial commission, and you are the vice president. There was a time Moi was in Uganda representing the president in a Commonwealth meeting, and there's a group of security officers who went to his house in Kabarak and turned it upside down as they are checking, still looking for weapons. And you are still there, vice president. You come back, you don't ask. You keep quiet as if nothing happened. That was the strength of Moi.
Moi knew his strength was to pretend to be weak. And by the way, Moi told me that pretending to be weak, pretending to be foolish, is a fiber tactic, and it works.
Still, Njiru insists Moi turned his unflinching loyalty into his greatest weapon.
Moi knew his position very well. And his relationship with his boss was good, and he wanted to remain good.
His devotion to Kenyatta, open, unquestioning, and absolute.
So that ability to project loyalty to whoever is in charge at any time was ingrained in him. Could also be part of his political calculations. Because being seen far, if you don't rock the boat, the chances of succeeding are very high. Eh? So when he was appointed as vice president, and people doubted whether he had any ambitions, which he hid. He had ambitions, but he hid them very well by being loyal, appearing to be loyal. It came to a point where Kenyatta had decided that it was going to be Moi when he leaves. I heard that from Njoroge Mungai.
You remember I said in the very beginning that His Excellency Dan was a creator and a creation of his times. You know, he knew very well that you cannot change what happens to you from others, but you can change what happens to them from you. He responded using what we call in political strategy, tactical silence.
When Jomo Kenyatta was in power, and Moi was the vice president, Moi acted timidly. He was loyal, he was timid, and he was non-controversial.
And his thinking, which he expressed in 1984 when he was president, and he was returning from some place, and at the airport, as usual, the vice president is there and the ministers lining up to say Karibu. For some reason he was unhappy with Kibaki, so he just turned to him and read the riot act on him, told him to stop thinking, because thinking is a presidential prerogative. And he said that when he was vice president, he did not have a mind of his own. Therefore, who are you? He said, you can have a mind. Utaimba, I put a full stop, you put a full stop.
Moi was not the archetypal political gladiator. He was soft-spoken, unassuming, even gentle, non-competitive, non-aggressive. Yet, as Njiru reflects, destiny seemed to whisper that he was bound for something greater.
And you see that time also, not all the colleges supported him. There were people like Taita Towet, who had gone to Makerere and Britain. He thought that he should have been the leader of the college. By dint of his, by dint of his good educational grounding, there were people like Jean Marie Saroni, who was an MP for Tinderet. He was a lawyer. He understood it in India. So he thought, I'm a lawyer. This one is a graduate of Makerere and United Kingdom. We come from the biggest communities, the Kipsigis and the Nandi. With this token, who never even went to secondary school, just a mere teacher.
Ladies and gentlemen, Arap! Hey! Yeah! Arap! Hey! Yeah! Arap! Hey! Yeah!
As Kenyatta's health waned, the stakes grew perilous. A circle of influential politicians deeply loyal to the aging president conspired feverishly to block Moi's succession.
Of course, there were people who were trying to stop him. Yeah, people like Ijeka Karume, Paul Ongei, Angaine. Yeah, and the team was led by Keheka Kemani.
The father to the governor, our governor, Nakuru. Yeah. I say our governor because I have interests there. Yeah. You know, you cannot be a Kisii like me and you lack interests in Nakuru. That will be almost an abomination. Kihika Kimani Njoroge Mungai, Dr. Kiano, many others of Kenyatta's inner circle.
In smoke-filled rooms, they plotted constitutional changes, desperate to rewind the rules of succession and stop a man they saw as too weak, too humble, and too unlikely from ever taking the mantle of power.
This group had rivals, and their rivals were mainly Charles Njonjo and Mwai Kibaki, the two strongest men in Kenyatta's dispensation. One controlling the money and the other one controlling the law.
For more than a decade, Daniel Arap Moi held the office of vice president, quietly weaving alliances and cultivating friendships within government circles.
Moi, being the clever person that he was, and having been in the parliament longer than anybody else, from 1955, nobody else had served for as long,
Yeah.
And having seen all those regimes, and survived, and he knew what had happened, what was going on, So one of the things he did is to make sure that he recruited a lot of KANU chairmen. So you go to every place, the KANU chairman is a Moi person. Wherever you go, the chairman is a what?
A Moi person.
Yeah. So the people who are cooking up these things were kind of short-sighted. They were rising up against a tide. Moi had already secured.
Now, during that time, there was a clause in the Constitution which stated that it was treason to compass, to plot, to plan, and even to imagine the death of a president. And because Njonjo was a friend of Moi, he issued a statement saying that anybody who talks or insinuates about the possible death of the president would be killed. Because that was treason. Just imagining.
Just imagine.
Yes, if the government knew you are imagining, that was treason.
How will the government know that I'm imagining?
Well, they won't know, but of course, that's what to tell you how serious it was.
That was aimed at dealing with Akina Njenga Karume, Akina Kika Kimani, Akina Njoroge Mungai, who were actually for change of the constitution movement, as it is called. You remember the big meeting they had in Nakuru. Nakuru has always been a revolutionary place, particularly when it comes to things KANU. So these are the Lord controlled the money and controlled the law. Njonjo gave the first shot, cut off all those meetings, and influenced the Kenyatta to call these proprietors of this change the constitution movement and tell them cheni maneno mengi. But they didn't stop there.
There was supposed to be a KANU election or decision making, and the contest was very clear. It was between Moi and Njoroge Mungai. That's the way it was portrayed. And now, the two of them, contestants, decided to consult the president. I heard this from Njoroge Mungai, yes, so I can say it.
Yeah.
So Moi and Njoroge Mungai got in the same car, and they drove all the way to Nakuru to see the president, to ask his advice on guidance, seek his guidance. At the time when they were there was supposed to be a meeting at KICC that was to deliberate on KANU. So according to Njoroge Mungai, when they got to Nakuru to see them there, they gave impression they were in a hurry. So he offered them uji or tea or whatever it is, you know, the way you welcome people into your house. And they didn't want to take it. So he wondered, what's wrong with these people? I offer you this, you don't. You must be very busy, you're in a hurry. Okay, I understand you have a big meeting in Nairobi, you are very busy. Since you don't want to drink anything, why don't you just go? So they left having no answer from the president. And Njoro Mungai said that's when he knew for sure Kenyatta wanted Moi. So maybe he had thought that Kenyatta would go and say the Moi stepper or what. He said no. He just told them to get lost. And when they got to Nairobi, the meeting had been cancelled. Message very clear.
Then came the night of August 22nd, 1978, a night that forever altered Moi's destiny.
On August 21st, Monday, 1978, Jomo Kenyatta collapsed in Mosambweni primary school in Kwale. Now, from there, he was not rushed to hospital. He was taken to sleep because people thought that if you took him to hospital, it would mean that you are imagining that he might die. And that is why he died the following day, on Tuesday, 22nd August. Because people feared that if you rush him to hospital, you are imagining that he could die. Some people, his handlers left him sleeping. He died alone. Yeah, people, somebody like his brother-in-law, Bioko Inange, who was also his minister of state and a confidant, just flew to Nairobi by Kenya Airways in the evening, and he left Jomo Kenyatta. You know why? Because he don't want to imagine that Kenyatta could die. Somebody like Dr. Mongola, who was his personal person of physician and the comptroller, they went to Karibamba in Toronoka to go and drink. Yeah, he died because imagining was treasonable.
The news reverberated with finality. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, the founding father of the nation, had passed away earlier that day.
Where was Moi at that particular time?
Moi was in the Kabarak, in Nakuru.
How did he react when he received the news?
Well, I don't know how he reacted because I was in Mombasa with Jomo Kenyatta. I was in Mombasa with Jomo Kenyatta. But of course, he got the message from Mahehu and again from the Director of Intelligence, James Kanyoto. So he rushed to Nairobi. His home was already secured by General Service Unit they had organized.
Hours before, Moi was simply vice president, the loyal second in command. Now, with Attorney General Charles Njonjo safeguarding the Constitution's letter and spirit, the mantle of leadership fell firmly on his shoulders.
Then that day, at 3 p.m., that was on 22nd August 1978, he was sworn in as the president for a period of 3 months.
Of our father who passed away last night. The Vice President, Mr. Daniel Arap Moi, is now President of Kenya for the next 90 days until an election is held for the future President of Kenya. How is the process of selecting the next candidate, the next president? What happens for that? So the party will meet and decide which candidates they are going to offer. Does that mean that there's only going to be one candidate, or could there be more? Well, Kenya is a one-party state, and so there's the only one candidate.
Yet, even as he assumed power, skepticism filled the air. To some, he was nothing more than a passing cloud, a placeholder destined to vanish as quickly as he had appeared. What they did not foresee was that the next 90 days will forge his resolve and etch his place permanently in Kenya's history. In just 90 days, the constitutional window allowed, Daniel Arap Moi rose to the highest office in the land, sealing his place with a historic uncontested victory in the 1979 elections.
And properly supported in accordance with the Constitution by 1,000 Kenyans, properly registered in various constituencies in all the parts of Kenya.
Nyayo! 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 Nyayo!
Mimi Daniel Arap Moi naapa kwamba nitakuwa mwaminifu kwa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Since he became president afterwards, he succeeded. People are reminded more about a change the constitution that failed and not change the constitution that succeeded. The 1968 succeeded.
And that is what worked for Moi.
Yeah.
Now that you know how he came to power, the real question is, how did he hold on to it?
Moi relied heavily on the intelligence system. At that time it was called the special branch. Moi relied very heavily on this system.
He goes through an experience between 1982 and 1984 where some people even thought they should kick him out and others thought they should overthrow him. And Moi was able to sustain himself during those 4 or so years.
He was a very tough leader, a tough African statesman, and very kind. You know, he believed on the principle of carrot and stick. You either toe the line. If you toe the line, you receive good rewards. You reap rewards. You reap benefits. If you play with him, he told me that anybody plays with me, or anybody who plays with him, would be hit faster than lightning.
Ni wajibu wetu kama iko shida kwa shule fulani, tufanye harambee.